Welcome, Samurai, to episode 47 of Press YYZ, your favorite Canadian gaming podcast. You can watch the show live every Wednesday at twitch.tv/PressYYZ at 8 p.m. Eastern, or listen to it whenever you like on podcast services like iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as our very own YouTube channel. We appreciate however you choose to support the show, including on Twitch with a free sub that comes with your Amazon Prime if you'd like. But if you've got no loonies or toonies to spare, it's all good. We'll be here no matter what. This episode, we're going to talk all about Cyberpunk, the Game Awards, and, other random things we've been up to. I'll be your host for today, Mr. Mitch George, joined as always by the phenomenal Nathan McInerney.
Hello.
The all-digital Geordie LaForge.
Hi.
AKA AJ Fraser, and as always up on the ones and twos, Mr. Alexander Cozy Cozina.
I was born in the Cyberpunk. You guys only adopted it.
Guys, this week has been something. I am...
Yeehaw.
Yeah.
All right. That's enough of this video entitled Epileptic Seizure Warning. Use your computer to monitor two rave lights. I've had enough of that. Hi.
Hi. I don't have a segue. Cozy, talking to us about Core.
Yeah, sure. Why not? So, as we all know, a little game by the name of Cyberpunk 2077 came out a little while ago, and it's been the top of the. I mean, it hasn't really been the top of the town, but it has been the talk of the town for various reasons, both good and bad. All the while, you guys have been enjoying or not enjoying Cyberpunk 2077. However, I have been busy working on my video game Equilibrium, and finally this past weekend, after an intense amount of work and thankfully not too much crunching thanks to a bit of good planning on my part, I was able to complete it. You can see right now on screen I'm showing off a bit of gameplay video of it. As I previously talked about, it is a survival game created using the core survival game framework for a game jam that they basically set up to kind of promote people to kind of make use of the framework and kind of let their freak flag run wild in terms of how they want to use it. You are exploring a entirely cybernetic, digital, kind of Tron-inspired environment. You are collecting zeros and ones in order to craft all sorts of new weapons that allow you to bash digital baddies. And you are also running between zones that are overclocked and underclocked in order to maintain your CPU temperature gauge, as you can see in the lower left side of the screen, so that you don't overheat or underheat. I implore everybody who has Core downloaded to go and check it out. And if you do not have Core downloaded, you can go and check out this gameplay video on my personal YouTube channel to kind of get a sense of what it is I recently made. I'm pretty proud of this project. I think that it came out way better than I was expecting to, and it's one of those things where, like, I was chipping away at this project throughout the entirety of the past month, but it was really only in the 11th hour that I feel like it really came together and kind of came into its own as this IMO really solid product. Like, a lot of the kind of like visual design of the world that you're exploring right here, that was very much an 11th hour, like, all right, I got to really populate this world and really make it sell this idea that you're in a datascape. But anyways, regardless, I think that it's not my favorite game that I've made in Core. I think that The Bread Rises, which is a game that I made before this one, and the game before that, Into the Mist, were a little bit better as just sort of like self-contained experiences that had a definitive beginning, middle, and end, and very clearly communicated the entire time what you were supposed to do. This game is a little bit more of a open-ended sandbox for you to kind of like experiment with and kind of try out its various systems and mechanics. And that is partially due to time constraints. I didn't have a lot of... I originally, when I scoped this game out, had this idea that like you would be finding caches that would tell this story that would be told through these emails. And I basically had to kind of nix that because I decided that that's just going to take too much time to do. But also, like, it is one of those things where like I didn't want from the beginning this project to be a linear experience either. So through various factors, my project turned out the way it is, and I think that what it is very solid. But I implore people who check this game out on Core to also check out all of the prior experiences that I previously worked on, because I think that as good as this experience is, I think that there are even better experiences in the 2 games I made before this one. But I'm still very proud of this one.
Very, very cool. I just want to backtrack a bit and apologize for the way that opened. I looked at my screen and nothing hit, because this week has been a nightmare for me and for my wife. You'll remember a few months ago, I did this little thing called getting married. And we came home. Yeah, I know, right? Crazy in this year. We came home afterwards, like the day afterwards. We got a hotel that night, and then we came home the day after to flooding from our laundry that had gotten into the bedroom under the laminate flooring, and everything was warped to crap. So for the last 3 months, I've been dealing with insurance and with the building to first get the laundry repaired and then come in and do the floors. This week, they were able to come in and do the floors. But that meant everything from my bedroom, the bed, the dressers, the acoustic bass guitar, the floor mirror, all the clothes from the closet, it all had to go somewhere else. And for most of that was in my living room. I slept in my living room for the last 3 days on my bed, which should not be in a living room. Have gotten little to no sleep all 3 nights. And I cannot wait tonight to go to a bed that is in a room that does not have a TV 13 inches from my face. It's been a whole thing, because like,
did you consider not letting that happen before it happened?
It's hard not to let something happen when you can't anticipate it happening, and it just kind of happens.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Now you know. Now you know.
Now you know. You know.
Now you know.
No, because oh my god, dealing with they're like, oh, I knew exactly what flooring was in. They're like, oh, we don't install that, so we have to do something different. And they got something different, and it looks close, but it's not the same, and I can tell. And it gets in my head where it's like, oh, why does one room look different than the other? But at this point, I just need to sleep, man. It's been a week for sure. Yeah. Nathan, what have you been up to this week?
So this week, mostly I've been trying. I know everybody's been in another universe, but I've revisited an old favorite of mine, Sam & Max Save the World, as it's recently come to Nintendo Switch. It was originally released back in 2006, and it was Telltale's first game that put them on the map with doing old point-and-click adventure games. And it's been lovingly recreated by the team at Skunk Ape, who I believe are also they hold the Sam & Max IP now, so they'll be remastering the other 2 games that Telltale did, as well as I believe they're working on a VR game. So, but they gave it a nice shiny coat of paint. It looks like a current game. The controls on Switch are really good, especially for a point and click. It's really easy and fun to use. And it's just, I laugh so much while I play it. It's so funny.
This was based off of a comic book series, correct?
Yes. It was also, back when I was a kid, a cartoon. They had it on Fox.
I didn't know
back in the day.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if you dig it up, you can actually find that. But yeah.
I remember when the original of this game came out, specifically, like it's like the first it's kind of what put Telltale on the map to an extent.
You know what's funny? A lot of people don't know this. This was actually a point-and-click game with LucasArts.
I was going to say, yeah. I'm on the Wikipedia page now, and the original comic artist actually joined LucasArts, and there started working as a game designer and was able to get to Sam & Max.
Yeah, Steve Purcell. Yeah. No, it's Sam & Max has been such, like, Sam's always plays a straight guy, and Max is this psychotic rabbit. And the humor is just out of the world. As far as adventure games go, like, this was also the first big episodic game. Nobody had done episodic games before this.
Right.
So, because it's broken into 6 episodes. Obviously, all 6 episodes are given out once here. But it's really interesting to go back and realize that these games have aged super, super well. And the fact that a few control scheme fix-ups on it have made it play really well. My son's been playing it as well, and he's gotten through it. And I know some people struggle with adventure games because some of the solutions seem obtuse, but he's managed to get his way through it. So I'm actually kind of impressed.
Wow.
So, you need to have a certain brain for him.
Yeah, I mean, just reading through a bit of the history of the franchise, like Nathan said, it started at LucasArts.
Yeah.
It was 2D all up until that point, and then they transitioned into 3D in 2006, which is actually when Telltale took over
that's what
the license from LucasArts, and it started being developed there.
So,
cool. Yeah, I also didn't know that Telltale was started by former LucasArts employees.
Yeah, well, they wanted to bring back the old school adventure games like the Monkey Islands and I love point and click adventure games. It's just something in my DNA.
We know.
So this is just like a nice, big, warm, wet hug. So playing it. So that's what I've been doing this week. Getting through all the episodes of that because it's a pretty girthy game. But if you're looking for some fun, this is on PC and Switch. I wish it was on other systems. More people should play it.
We know you want your platinum trophies. Speaking of platinum trophies, you know what has a platinum trophy and is probably the only thing we're going to talk about for the next hour? Cyberpunk 2077 is here, everybody. We've been playing it. AJ's been playing it. I've been playing it. We have words. There are words on the internet about this game. Yep. AJ, tell me about your time in Night City.
Okay, so last week on the show, I was playing it live and
on the show and being distracted
on the show,
really difficult for me to get your attention.
Yeah, I was being incredibly rude. And I was playing it on Stadia at the time. And after the show, I just decided to boot up my PC copy, and the little bit better that it looks was enough to keep me there. I have I've got a 2070 Super and a Ryzen 7 3700X processor, and I have two 1080p monitors. So on my one 1080 monitor, I'm able to run it at ray tracing ultra, if you will, and to me it looks fine. It looks great on there. I think it would be nicer in, say, the photo mode or whatnot to have a higher resolution. But other than that,
that really only matters when it comes to where you're trying to share the photos, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like with Photoshop, something that I've been doing is going into photo mode and then just sort of panning the camera around and using Photoshop to stitch these pictures together to create a nice dual monitor screenshot. So for a wallpaper and stuff. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I think for that purpose, it would suit me better to get a higher resolution. But that is not something I am capable of doing at this time. But so I guess overall thoughts of Cyberpunk. Mitch, you haven't played too much of it.
No, not nearly as much as you.
What do you think so far, and is your opinion of it potentially colored by the discourse around it?
I haven't really I mean, again, I'm probably only about 5 hours in at this point. Yeah. I've gotten to a point in the game where I wasn't really invested in the characters and the story, and then I got to a point where sort of a switch flipped, and we can talk about it offline because I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I need to play more of this game. Like, I got to that point. I was playing last night. It was like 10:30, and I was feeling like I need to go to bed. And I stayed up playing until like 1.
Wow!
So I couldn't put it down last night, and we'll probably get back to it a bit tonight after the podcast. Except I still have a bedroom to put back together, so maybe after that.
You're still playing it on Stadia, by the way?
I am playing it on Stadia. My Stadia Premier Edition arrived today, just before the show, so I had to get a chance to get... Pairing that controller with my Wi-Fi was a Herculean effort.
It could be because you're on... you use an iPhone. My experience with the Android devices is it just sort of works.
So... I was able to get it working, but I had to enable the guest network on my Wi-Fi, connect to that using a different Wi-Fi security protocol, update the controller, unpair the controller, and then connect it to my actual Wi-Fi, and then it worked after I had installed the update. So I actually think the controller might have been out of date.
Maybe.
Or it could be the protocol we're using on our network, but I didn't want to. This was near the end of the workday, and Carmen was still working at the computer, so I didn't want to change the security protocol on the Wi-Fi, and it would boot her out, and then I'd hear a scream from the other room, like, why is my internet not working? So I might tinker with that after this. We'll see. But no, I was able to get it all set up eventually. Got the Chromecast chroming. It's fine. I am now interested to see, because like I've got a 1080 or not. I've got a 4K HDR television. I may invest in at least another month of Stadia Pro just to see what that looks like at 4K. But yeah, I don't think the issue was the iPhone. I think it was actually in the controller, but we were able to get it all sorted. So it's not the end of the world. It was just it was more of a barrier to entry to getting that set up than I would have liked. But then again, the Chromecast and Stadia controller were kind of a throw-in with buying Cyberpunk, so I'm not going to complain. And I'm enjoying it. I haven't noticed a lot of there's issues I've noticed, but it's not to the same extent as people are seeing them on previous gen consoles, or even on the new Series X and PS5, just because they're still running those older versions, or they're running those games in backwards compatibility mode. I've had like one or two graphical glitches. I've had a couple of weird bugs where like my gun wouldn't stop firing, and then my gun would not reload. It was stuck in like some weird infinite loop, and I'd had to reload the save.
Sometimes I'll be like, I'll go into a menu and come out of the menu, and my character is zoomed all the way in, like when you pull the left trigger and you zoom in a little bit. It's like that. Aim down sights. You end up walking slower. It's just like that for some reason, and you just have to tap it and get out of it. Thankfully, I haven't had too many game-breaking glitches. I had the really good glitch where your ding dong falls out of your pants and you're in the menu.
You did send us all a screenshot of that I immediately said, why did you not mark that not safe for work?
I don't know,
because it was in a Discord that people look at it at work.
Hey, you know what? Shit happens at work sometimes. Let's
but real. Ding dong shouldn't happen at work.
Can we show that on Twitch?
No.
It's particular.
You can in the context of the game. So there's been some weird issues around Cyberpunk and streaming it. You shouldn't linger on something longer than it would normally be how you linger on it in the game. It's like you can't like just load up the character creator and leave it on a pair of boobs for like 15 minutes, because it would not be realistic in terms of the gameplay to just stare at those boobs for 15 minutes.
Well, I mean, maybe not for you, but for me, absolutely.
For the majority of people.
My
wife's just turned around to me like, why have you said boobs 6 times in the last minute?
Scrolling through the ding dong options, making it grow and shrink over and over again was a good time.
I didn't go ding dong. I went with a lady
hoo-ha.
And I've been having a blast. I think the game is pretty well acted. We all know that Johnny Silverhand is a pretty core component to the game, and I think what I've experienced of that character so far is just a lot of fun. I didn't really know a lot about the story, and I'm not going to get into it here to avoid spoilers, but now that I have a better sense of where the story's going, I'm pretty invested in it.
You have the context of like in all the trailers and stuff, you have the context that, hey, you're the only one seeing Johnny.
It's a manifestation.
The explanation the explanation and everything as to why is super cool, I think. I think my overall
I agree. Let's
are we
getting spoilery here?
No, we're gonna do our best not to. I'm really liking everything that I've played. I'm going to continue to play, even though we have a number of friends who know that as soon as something like Temtem goes on sale on the PS5, then I'm just going to abandon this and go back to my PS5. I do have a few games I also have to review over the next couple of weeks, so I need to start finishing off some of that. So that takes away some time. That's why I've only put the handful of hours in that I have to Cyberpunk. But I've got some time off coming up from work. So I've putting some more time over the holidays.
Before we get talking about some of the news surrounding this game, the way that it's sort of like impacted and caused pop culture going a bit of a tizzy, what is one thing with each of you that you were really kind of pleasantly surprised by with Cyberpunk 2077? Like something you were not expecting to blow you away and has blown you away? And what's something that you were expecting to blow you away, but you kind of came away disappointed by?
I'll go ahead. I think for me personally, I think the thing I'm most pleasantly surprised by is the fact that, and it might just be a personal thing, the story is pulling me through in such a way. I put about 30 hours into it so far, so I've got a pretty good chunk. I don't think I'm anywhere near finished, but I'm doing a lot of these side quests and everything. On the other hand, I think the biggest disappointment that I found is that it could have been so much more, but Greg Miller on Kind of Funny Gamescast this week said it best. It's very much like a Fallout, and I think the disappointment is that it's like because they first announced the game in 2012, I think, right? Mm-hmm. That they were working on it.
Yeah.
And that is like the perfect time to be inspired by, oh, hey, what if we did Skyrim, but in like the future, or like modern time future, like something like that, right? Oh, what about it just feels like
this is also based off an existing IP, which does help from a storytelling perspective.
From a storytelling perspective, it's a great setting and everything for that. But I think the fact that it's a video game when it could have been a little bit more than that, I think, and the fact that it is open world like those games, I think definitely there was potential there, but it definitely held itself back. It's a victim of its own ambition, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's going to be something that comes up throughout these stories we're going to talk about in terms of the discourse around the launch of the title, is that it does seem like, to an extent, CDPR has bit off more than they can chew with this one. They've let scope creep in a bit, where there's so much to this game in terms of like the volume of content here is kind of outstanding. The attention to detail, the number of dildos is a little off-putting, but we'll get to that as well. Yeah, it's in the news. I never could have imagined we would be talking about dildos in the news on this show, but
here we are.
2020, man. Am I right?
I mean, we did have a story about Randy Pitchford, so
you want to tell your mom about the dildos, Cozy?
I mean, let's jump right into it. I don't see why we should.
No. I do want to spend a little more time here. And then we can jump to the news surrounding the launch of this game. Like I said, I think the story is what's most pleasantly surprised me about this, because I was not looking forward to this game the way a lot of other people were. I wasn't actually planning on picking it up at launch. It really was that Stadia promotion that pushed me over the edge of, I want to give this platform a fair shake, and this is a great way for me to get in the door. And the story has been really engrossing, at least to the point that I've gotten. I'm hoping it continues. From what I know, it seems like it will. And the thing that's bothered me the most is, from mechanically, is something that we actually heard about a few months ago and was maybe partially to blame for some of the delays that we've seen on this title, and that's the combat. The melee combat, or the hand-to-hand combat, it's no bueno. I do not enjoy that in the slightest.
I think it's fine. The hand-to-hand combat is very simplistic, but
it's fine. It's something I'm not really going to use. Like, I prefer the gunplay.
Okay. So you have 3 weapon slots, right? And you have to have one of those empty in order to use your fists. Otherwise, I have it. You're seeing the video on stream right now, I believe, about. He's running around with a shotgun and using a sword. I definitely use a katana a lot, and I'm just running up to people, hacking people, running away, hiding. Similar to The Last of Us, I think the stealth sequences, especially early on, aren't handled very well. But as you build and spec your character, it does get a little bit easier to do those stealth things, but then you kind of get hit with the impatience of, I want to keep moving things forward, but
that's kind of where I'm at. I want to be stealthy, but every encounter I get to, I'm stealthy for like the first room or two, and then somehow someone sees me that I didn't see, and then it's a rain of bullets from that point forward.
Yeah, and I think with regards to your the stats and stat points and everything that you can use, the what is it? If you're planning on trying to be a jack of all trades because you don't know what way you want to spec yourself, you're gonna end up not having a lot of the cool abilities as you get further on, which is kind of the spot that I'm in. I'm mostly okay in that I've got enough of the quick hacking and stuff, and I do enough of the gunplay that I can handle almost any situation. But then I see, clips of stuff online and whatnot of somebody with these mantis claw arms and whatnot, and it's just like, what? How? It didn't. The cybernetic enhancements and everything, it does a little bit of tutorialization of regarding that, and there's like cutscenes and stuff. But then after that, it doesn't really come up unless you seek it out. And so by default, you're just sort of going on, just doing basic gunplay, thinking, oh, okay, well, you're kind of expecting it to. And I think this is one of the places where it flounders. Is the expectation is that it's going to be in any good quote unquote video game, it's going to be a good balanced, hey, we're going to feed you a little bit of this, feed you a little bit of that, give you some of this, and then it doesn't feel like it's giving me the opportunities to try and to experiment, really, because all the cool stuff happens so far later on, that I don't want to necessarily commit to speccing one way or another.
It'd be nice if the game featured some way to respec if you really wanted to. Which I don't know if that's in there or not, because I don't know if
that's sort of confirmed. That would be the most cyberpunk thing it could do.
Really, yeah. All right. Before we move into the news, Cozy, Nathan, has anything we've said or anything you've read or heard about this game? Okay, so according to Jeebus in the chat, you can respec perks, so that is good to know.
Cool.
Oh, good.
But not ability level points, which is whatever. Cozy, Nathan, I just want to get a sense from you. Is there anything about this game that you're hearing from us or you're hearing from others around that interests you in getting into it at all, or is it still sort of just a wait and see or not even going to touch it kind of experience for you guys?
So Greg calling it on the Gamescast I listened to the fact that he compared it to Fallout actually makes me really excited. Here's the thing, though, I'm not touching it until there's a native PS5 version. I can wait.
That was my original plan.
And I think I've had that opinion for a while. I think I've stated that I thought the PS4 version was going to be a mess, and I would wait for the PS5 native version. But yeah, I do want to get into it one day once, it's patched and there's a new version.
Cozy?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on this game is the same that it was a couple of weeks ago, which is that it seems like it's a little too overambitious, but it also very much seems like it's quite a bit up my alley. I don't know why I said ally. Quite a bit up my alley.
Poor ally.
Just that kind of day.
And the comparisons to Fallout and, of course, previously, what is it, Deus Ex, definitely are things that are very much of interest to me. You mentioning that you had a difficult time stealthing around actually is a little bit dispiriting to hear, because one thing that I really enjoyed about Cyberpunk...
That's more so me just being a dum-dum. I'm a dum-dum when it comes to games like this.
Okay.
That's why I don't usually stick with them. I honestly might... I'm trying to figure out if I want to restart a character and just go for an all-out brute that can just like muscle their way through with tons of gunplay, but...
Put all your points in body. Yeah.
Exactly, which I've not really done yet. I want to play it stealthy. I want to do the hacking. I want to do all those kinds of things, but... I don't think I have the right build. I might have to lean on our friends, both here and afar, to figure out exactly how I should be speccing this character.
Something that I really enjoyed about Deus Ex Mankind Divided is how easy it was for me to stealth through that game's environments. In fact, so much so that I remember when that game came out, some people complained about how it was just a little bit too easy to do so. I remember the Kotaku review starting it out by saying, man, Adam Jensen needs a nerf. This guy's a little bit too powerful. But despite hearing that it might be a little bit more on the difficult side to stealth in this game, I am still very much interested in playing it, but I am going to just wait until they fix some of the issues. And I am perfectly fine waiting until like March, April, even May of next year, if it means that I have to wait that long for the game to be in a much better shape than it is right now on PS5.
It is absolutely...
And I know... I know, by the way,
absolute... Go ahead, Cozy.
AJ, go ahead, then Cozy, go ahead, and then I will say a thing, and then I have another thing I want to say, and then we will move into the news, okay?
Okay.
AJ, go.
Okay. It is absolutely possible to be good at stealth from the beginning. This is something I've learned as I've played. It's just, as somebody who spec'd their way as kind of like an all-around, I don't know what way I want to go with this necessarily. I wanted the story to guide me that way more. But really, it is open-ended in such a way you can attack any encounter whatever way you want. It's just if you know you want to do it stealthy when you go in, maybe look up the perks and stuff beforehand and the ability attributes and whatnot, and learn to spec yourself that way if that is something you are interested in doing.
Okay, cool.
Cozy.
I wanted to say, like, I remember with the original Deus Ex, and by that I mean Deus Ex Human Revolution, one of the complaints that people had with that game is that the boss battles lean very heavily towards like physical gun-based combat as opposed to stealth or any other kind of, method of play. And I was hearing from some people that apparently this game suffers from something of the same issue, where the big bad bosses also very much emphasize like gunplay and melee combat over like hacking and stealth and whatnot. Is that true in your experiences?
I've really only hit one small, quote-unquote, boss fight, and honestly, the way I dealt with it was I ran right through and ignored it. I didn't kill the thing.
Okay.
So I played the game of run through to the next objective.
There's some side missions and stuff that are very boss-like fight-like. You show up to an area, and there's a very, very powerful person there who you have to subdue. And some of them are side quests, and then some of the quote unquote story based like boss fights, if you will, are just more or less bigger story sequences than they are boss fights. So.
Okay. See, this is like part of the reason why I don't want to play this game right away, is that the kind of dark side to a lot of the water cooler talk that people have, where they're like, oh man, what'd you do when you got to this part of Cyberpunk? Oh, I did this, that, and this and that. Is that right now, when we're so early into exploring these kinds of games, there can sometimes be a little bit of misinformation. Like if you're like, oh man, I could not employ my stealth or hacking abilities at all on this one boss, like you don't know whether or not that's just your own personal experience that you had with the boss and you just couldn't figure out how to take it on in an uncreative fashion, or if that is actually the way that the game was designed.
On stream right now is they just got to a part where this is technically one of these story-based main story boss fights that happens. And
spoilers,
Spoiler, it's very early on.
I mean, I'm not even really paying attention too much to the video. I'm like, oh.
If you were curious, it's right here. But we're probably going to cut away from that soon anyway. So.
All right. Well, I've more or less have had all my questions for the time being answered.
Can I uncover my eyes now? Are the spoilers gone?
The spoilers
again,
never happen.
It's just, cool. I'm sort of paying attention to the screen. And it's like, I can't even tell what
you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have any context for anything.
The one last thing I wanted to say before we moved on with regards to Cyberpunk is, Cozy, Nathan, if you guys are going to be waiting for that native PS5 version, with the way these games launched, and so I'm seeing a lot of what happened to Marvel's Avengers in this game, of launch supporting previous gen hardware. Game comes out and is a buggy, broken mess. The first 6 months plus of the game being out is going to have to be bug fixing that version before they can get back to working on the next gen version in earnest. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see that PS5 native version until next fall.
I will say, in comparing the two games, at the very least, this is a primarily like 100% single player experience.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, they have their own issues in different ways. I just meant more so of the launching like a wet fart.
You feel like it might be fixed as late as next fall?
Yep. I mean, I would not be surprised if the PS5 version of this game launches in fall 2021.
You know, earlier this year,
I will eat crow if that does not happen, but I could totally see that happening.
I played through.
I thought they might push it to 2022. Honestly,
yeah, I could see that happening too. Depends on how quickly they're able to resolve some of the issues that already exist in the game.
Earlier this year,
should have been delayed to 2077.
I played through Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in like March, and that was the perfect time to play it because by that point they had ironed out a lot of the kinks in the system there. I don't know that I would have like gone back to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order though if it was fully fixed up in like September.
Actually, funny story about that. So this week, or I guess between the last show and this show's recording, I was able to buy 2 more PS5s.
Oh wow!
So through some of the restocks, I got in there. I was able to get 2 PS5s. So one of them I sold to a really good friend of mine who's been looking for one, and I, as a Christmas gift to him, pulled out every physical disc that I thought he should play because he didn't have any. He didn't have a PS4, Xbox One, hasn't had a gaming PC in 5-10 years. So I pulled out Jedi Fallen Order. I pulled out Spider-Man. I pulled out Uncharted. I pulled out. What's the name of the game? God of War, Horizon, all these games, right? Which I'm realizing now he might not even need all of them because of the PlayStation Plus collection, but that's not important right now.
If he gets Plus.
I'm assuming he will. I'm going to suggest he do it at least for the month to get bug snacks.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then the second one I was able to get for a friend of ours, Alistair, who hangs out in our Discord. So yeah, I'm glad I was able to do that, but I've just felt like the PS5 whisperer this week in terms of acquiring those. Yeah, it's been weird, but he's playing Fallen Order now. He's actually texting me today saying he's absolutely loving it. So that's why I kind of wanted to bring that up.
All right.
And one last thing I wanted to bring up to you guys, because I don't know if you're aware, I have created our 2021 Fantasy Critic League for the podcast.
Ooh.
So I will make sure you guys get that link. We'll get all signed up there, ready to go for the new year. I don't think we've decided yet if we're going to do the draft on a show or a bonus episode or just offline. But you can find the details of that. We'll be sharing that on Twitter. We'll be sharing details on our Discord as we get closer to the new year, or maybe in the new year. We don't know yet. We're still trying to sort all that kind of logistic-y stuff out. But until we get there, let's get into the news.
Yeah.
So the news this week has been Cyberpunk and very little else. Yeah.
There's been not much else to talk about.
Well, I mean,
most anticipated game of the year of the last 7 years.
And it comes out like a wet fart, surprising a lot of people for whatever reason, even though their last game came out and was a buggy mess as well. But we will get into that. So much so that CDPR had to issue a statement regarding refunds for the title for people who were not satisfied with the PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game. But those requests for refund have been met with an inconsistent response from platform holders. This coming to us via Rebecca Valentine at GamesIndustry.biz. CD Projekt Red initially directed console refund requests to the platform holders, but is now asking for more time. Following a litany of launch issues surrounding Cyberpunk 2077, ranging from the inclusion of since fixed epileptic triggers, as well as game-breaking bugs. I cannot read today. A number of people are seeking refunds for the game, but are struggling to get them. So 2 days ago, CDPR issued a statement apologizing for the performance, noting the patches are on the way, but suggesting anyone who is dissatisfied with their purchase request a refund. However, a day later, during an emergency investor call, CDPR SVP of Business Development, Michael, I'm not even going to try. I'm sorry. Their SVP of Business Development
I was going to say, my dad might be able to know how to pronounce his name because he knows a bit of Slovenian, and that name is not Slovenian, but it's sort of within the same kind of linguistic, I guess you could say, like family region.
As I said, CDPR's SVP of Business Development indicated that refunds were not as simple as requesting one from the platform holder. Both Sony and Microsoft have denied refund requests along the guidelines that they have set out for their stores. I don't know the specifics of the Xbox policy, but I know on PlayStation, if you've downloaded the game, they will not issue a refund, and we're instead directing people to wait for the upcoming patches that CDPR has promised will come for the game in January and February. So that's a mess.
I have thoughts about this.
I want to hear those thoughts. I do want to say that a friend of ours had actually tried to go through this and then went on a bit of a Twitter tirade when he was met with this response. Rightfully so. If you decided that your money is better spent elsewhere between now and when the game is playable, then wait. And you should be entitled to that money back. And Nathan, what are your thoughts on this whole refund debacle?
So the refund's a big issue, but there's a lot of problems involved here. CD Projekt Red should have talked to both Microsoft and Sony about doing refunds before they put a statement out saying they should go get refunds. They kept them in the dark. But then on that investor call, I believe they also said, because there was a question about how this game got past CERT, and they basically said that Sony and Microsoft let them skip the CERT process because they said they'd have the kinks worked out before the game launched. So I think at that point, it comes on Sony and Microsoft to then issue the refunds. Because
it's a pretty standard practice. It's a pretty standard practice to actually do that. Even back in like the PS2 days, they would do something similar in that, you know, if there was like a very rare occurring game breaking bug or something like that, but it's so obscure that you couldn't progress or something like that, you know, they might, you know, they would talk to the manufacturers and the platform holders and whatnot and say, hey, let us print a couple of these copies and put them out into the wild. You know, we're going to fix this tomorrow, but we need to get the number of copies out there, and then we'll swap it in for the new one. And if somebody encounters a problem, then they can call us and swap it out for a fresh disc. They talk about it on the Giant Bombcast, that sort of issue. Yeah, so if you want more info on Cyberpunk in general, but also them talking about that. But that is a fairly standard thing for companies to do, especially in the era of day one patches. Now, yes, you know, it's a fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you sort of scenario here, in that, you know, they've let a bunch of companies do this over time. Why would CDPR this time be any different? And now it's biting everybody in the ass.
You think that this is going to change things going forward, where Sony and Microsoft are going to be like, we're not going to give anyone, even a developer that has a very good proven track record, like just a free pass with regards to the certification process? Do you think that they're going to be like, no, we really need to make sure that your game looks and plays as good as possible before we let people buy it on our consoles, because we don't want to have another conundrum like this again?
I think if they want to do that, then they need to employ their own QA testers, and allow game companies to utilize them to theoretically speed up the process of QA, quote unquote. Otherwise,
this sounds very expensive for both parties involved, and also incredibly difficult to do in the remote working environment that we find ourselves in 2020. I think a lot of this, not a lot of this, but I think part of this can be put to blame on, you know, the business having to shift to a remote working environment, from people having to totally try to shuffle and get things, you know, out the door, while also maintaining the same, you know, quote unquote quality. that we've seen from CD Projekt Red as they've launched their titles, because even The Witcher 3 launched and was a pretty buggy mess. And even to this day, people laud it for story and all these kinds of things. I have not personally finished it, but I've also heard from friends who have that it's not God's gift to gaming.
I don't remember The Witcher. I don't remember The Witcher having that many bugs at launch.
So The Witcher, when it launched, it had a very slow menu system in that it took a long time to load, and it was kind of frustrating that way. And then as well, a lot of people didn't like the way Geralt was moved and controlled. And so they added in a different kind of control feel after the fact as a free update and whatnot, which is what gave CDPR a lot of the credit that they earned and subsequently burnt with the release of Cyberpunk.
I think that regardless of what our thoughts are on The Witcher 3, whether we think it's deserving of all the praise it's received or not, it's pretty clear that the everything that's currently happening right now is the product of all these various factors kind of really bearing down on CD Projekt Red. We have the pandemic. We have the fact that, as beloved as CD Projekt Red is, they've been upfront about the fact that they have struggled with crunch, both on this game and, on The Witcher 3 in the past. That game had some real brutal crunch. If you want to read more about it, you can go and check out Jason Schreier's Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. And
CD Projekt Red also promised that they weren't going to crunch on this game and then decided to crunch on this game.
Well, and now they're extra going to be crunching on this game after the fact, because
that's the problem with the way games are developed now, is the game comes out and they're constantly being updated to fix some of these issues that come up at launch, because one, with the world we're living in right now, you don't have as many hands on it before launch, and two, there's just some things you're never going to catch until something launches. So you're constantly in this dev crunch update cycle, which is going to be really difficult for them moving into next year, on top of having to launch 2 more SKUs of this game.
Yeah, so we put a lot of pressure on the company and the direction and, poor management and stuff like that, which is all 100% a factor in this case. How much of it, I'm not an economist or anything like that, how much of it can we actually blame on pressure on publicly traded companies that employ all these people to get the game out now because I want to make my money back now from the investors?
I would say I have no idea, because I'm not in this industry, nor am I privy to any of those shareholder conversations. We're never going to know unless we get someone on the inside. So it's hard to say one way or another.
From the ground up, somebody starts a company and starts to change it. You
go, Cozy. That is your goal for 2021.
I'll look into it. I'll look into it.
The one last thing I wanted to say here is I think this situation for Microsoft and for Sony, on the heels of them both launching on Sony's part, their second, actually, both of them have launched digital platforms in the past, both with the Xbox One S all digital and Sony's PSP Go. But I think this is the first real time that there is a major SKU at the launch of these systems that is digital only. And I think their store policies are going to have to change in some way to allow a little more leniency when it comes to this kind of situation. Because you look at something like Steam, whose refund policy is similar to Sony and Xbox's, but also says it's not, if you've downloaded the title, you can't get a refund. It's if you've played less than 2 hours and you feel like you're not enjoying the game, you can get a refund. And I think that's something that Sony and Xbox are both going to have to look at Steam's policy and say, hey, what about this do we like? What do we not like? Because we are now living in a digital world, as much as they want to still support their brick and mortar partners with the consoles and the discs and the media remotes and the controllers and all that jazz. But ultimately, the move towards digital is a real future for this industry, and they need to get their shit together.
Totally.
Yep. And all that jazz.
Speaking of getting their shit together, I hate to continue bashing CD Projekt Red, but apparently developers on the title were updating the last gen version up until the very last minute.
I'm surprised.
CD Projekt Red held a conference call on Monday in which they addressed a number of inquiries into the launch of the game Cyberpunk 2077. This news coming again via gamesindustry.biz, written by James Batchelor. I'm not going to try names. I apologize to anyone involved, but there was a conference call.
Do you want me to call my dad?
CEOs of the company. No, it's okay, Cozy.
You sure? I can call my dad right here. I have my phone.
Cozy, it's fine. Despite strong sales and feedback on PC, Stadia, and next-gen consoles, feedback from those who are using older devices was way below our expectations. 4 members of the management team then faced questions from shareholders mostly focused on the current issues with the last-gen console SKU, but also touching on other aspects of the game's development. Many shareholders asked about how the negative feedback and need to fix the issues will affect plans for DLC, multiplayer, The Witcher 4, as well as the next-gen versions, but management offered no comment. One caller asked for clarification on the recent report that CDPR had changed its bonus structure in light of the poor reviews. They declined comment there as well. No questions were raised about the presence of epileptic triggers or the fact the studio enforced a mandatory crunch in the run-up to launch, something that still did not prevent a further delay to the game. Since Cyberpunk's launch last week, much of the discourse is focused on bugs, glitches, and poor performance on last-gen consoles. Review scores are also suffering, with the PC version's initial rating of 91 on Metacritic now down to an 89, and early console scores being considerably lower than the PC reviews that we got at launch. At time of writing this article, which would be Wednesday the 16th, the PlayStation version has a Metacritic rating of 52, while the Xbox version is at a 55.
Wow.
Is Alex Ballant still winning our open critic predictions?
Well, we're not going to get into that tonight. We decided to punt that to the new year, I think.
Yeah.
We're still kind of sorting out our end of year schedule. It's tight. I will say, the lower the score goes, the happier I am. And we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But yeah, so CDPR is rightfully getting called out for the way this game launched, and developers had not gotten a blink of sleep because they've been busy trying to fix all the issues that have come out since the launch of the game. Continuing in this town hall, COVID didn't help, and they've just been working on this thing nonstop right up until the launch.
So this just kind of reiterates the last point that I made on the previous article with regards to shareholders and investors and stuff like that. Why would CDPR put this game out on previous consoles? Because there's millions upon millions of those previous consoles out there in the wild now. And for investors, that means millions upon millions of sales, especially for this extra hyped, I'm not going to call it overhyped in this moment, but extra hyped, highly anticipated game that could theoretically lead to more sales. And now, that being what it is, in my opinion, it should have just been completely canned on last generation and focused on the new hardware. Take the PC build.
Do you think 343 Studios is looking at this and being like, oh shit, what do we do?
Oh, it's quite possible. Because
they've punted Halo Infinite to next year, and I see a very real possibility that game does not launch on the Xbox One and is PC and Xbox Series X and Series S exclusive.
I think if it's to quote unquote launch on the Xbox One, it needs to be exclusively through a streaming app. That is how you have to play it, and you play
Maybe
it.
We get Game Pass or xCloud on Xbox One by that point, right? And that's how you can do it.
Yeah,
I mean, hey,
it's coming to PC soon, so
I wouldn't say soon. Oh, you mean xCloud?
Yeah, xCloud is.
I mean, hey, we've already seen that the worst that Halo Infinite can look with regards to Craig the Brute is still better than some of the Cyberpunk.
It's beautiful. You leave Craig alone.
What I'm saying is that Craig...
He's complimenting Craig.
Exactly. I'm saying, Craig, which many people consider oh man, that's the lowest that this game is going to look, is still better than a lot of the NPCs in Cyberpunk 2077's Night City. So, even if that worst case scenario you guys are describing comes to pass, where it launches on the Xbox One and it looks like crap, I mean, it's not going to look like that much crap.
Sure.
I think it's more so the having to tune multiple versions. The more versions of the game you try to get out the door simultaneously, the more likely you are to have bugs across all of them, as opposed to focusing your efforts on the area which long term is going to be where your investment is best spent. So if you're going to spend, tens of thousands of man hours or person hours working on these previous gen versions that could be spent better optimizing the ones that are going to come out and be maintained over time, where is that from a technical perspective? You'd rather focus on the new and shiny. From an investor's perspective, you want to maximize return on that investment, which means launching where the majority of people will be able to buy that product.
Yes.
But I think we'll see as we get towards Halo Infinite's launch that we're going to see more and more of a shift, I think, towards Game Pass, and the physical, like the quote unquote traditional sales of Halo Infinite won't matter as much as the new user rate of Game Pass around that game's launch.
I think that CD Projekt Red, they need to put out a post on Twitter that does not have a yellow background behind it, in which they just come out and are like, hey guys, we fucked up big time. And that's not going to resolve anything. Ultimately they need to really kind of do a lot more things to rebuild their trust with their consumer base. But that would be a good start.
All right, well, speaking of being fucked up big time, Cyberpunk 2077 will no longer be a dildo paradise. This coming to us via VG247's Patrick Dane. One of the weirdest stories to come out of the launch of Cyberpunk 2077 is just how many dildos there are in the game. They're everywhere. Why are there so many dildos just being thrown asunder in the streets of Night City?
Cozy,
I actually appreciate that.
I think if you give it 10 seconds, you can show that screenshot that I shared on Twitter on stream. Just 10 seconds and then take it down.
How does everyone else feel? Mitch, Nathan, are you?
I'm going to keep going. You show whatever you're going to show. Philip Weber, a senior quest designer in the game, spoke to Kotaku, explaining their inclusion in the game was that they wanted Night City to be pretty open sexually, where something by today's standards might be taboo or kinky, and it ends up being very normal and commonplace by 2077 standards. However, while this might be true and is a nice sort of touch point into the way of the future and how progressive they're hoping the world of the future may be, it still seems like they added too many dildos.
You scrolled past it, Cozy.
Weber goes on to explain why they appear so frequently and what CD Projekt Red is going to do about it. He said, the second reason for the high amount of dildos in the world is because they can spawn as random loot. And we were still tweaking those settings, so especially during the early reviews, the amount of dildos in the game was pretty high. We're going to adjust that so that dildos don't appear too out of place or out of context and become more of a distraction than the way they had originally been intended in the design of the game. While it's easy to laugh and giggle, it's also good that Cyberpunk 2077 team is reining in it a bit. In terms of world building, it creates a confusing, perhaps even distracting reality of just too many dildos.
So I saw the screenshot that you just showed on screen before we went live, and no joke, I did not realize that your character AJ was holding a dildo.
So that is actually a blunt weapon that was stronger than the katana I had at the time.
So I was running through an area just trying to grab all the collectibles, and it was a firefight, so I was trying to find ammo boxes and things like that, and accidentally picked up a studded dildo.
Oh wow!
It was next to the ammo box, and I accidentally picked up a dildo.
Hey,
you know what? You don't want to accidentally pick up when you're trying to pick up ammo? A dildo. A dildo.
I feel like you should be picking up as many dildos as you can. Can you keep them and make a shrine of dildos?
I hope not. That would be really creepy to pick up a bunch of used dildos.
There's actually a section of the city. There's actually a section of the city that is focused on sex work and sexuality and all that stuff.
Y'all talk about sexuality and Cyberpunk and dildos, and I gotta go grab some water.
He's actually grabbing a dildo for himself. But
if I brought a dildo as a prop, would that be funny, or would that get banned on Twitch?
I mean, I would laugh. I don't know if I would laugh if we got banned on Twitch. Anyway, there's a small location in the city that is focused on sex work and stuff like that. just in the open world, and in one of the stores, it's just wall-to-wall dildos. It's pretty entertaining.
So here's the thing. This guy's saying we wanted Night City to be pretty open sexually, where something by today's standards might be taboo or kinky is very normal and commonplace. How much other weird sex kinky stuff is in this game aside from dildos? Oh,
okay. So this is actually something that it's something that harkens back to last year's transphobia controversy, where they had the image of the feminine-looking person with underneath their bathing suit clothing the erect penis, and they eventually edited that out of the marketing. But that picture is still very much splattered across the game itself. So they tried to do there with that, and with any other sexuality based stuff in the game, they tried to say something about it that hey man, it's cool, like what you like, do what you want, be the person you want to be, without actually saying anything about it at all, and just mostly using that sort of stuff as kind of a shock, tee-hee, dildos, sort of thing. So
what I find rather strange about this game is the narrative of be who you want to be, try to like be as open or as free as, like, why is there no way to change your character after you've started the game? You can customize your clothing. You can't.
It should be part of it should be part of your cybernetic augmentations. Should be able, like, the point is with that you can go back and forth as you please, and you know.
What I was trying to get at earlier, though, is like, you know, you mentioned how the game tries to kind of say this, impart this message of you can be whoever it is that you want to be in Night City, but it doesn't get any deeper than that. What about, though, like, just like the presence of like other like sex toys or like sexual objects in the vein of dildos? Like, are there any like anal beads strewn across the floor of Night City? Okay. See, that's what I was curious about, because the way that people have been describing this, it's like dildos are the only sexual thing you can encounter in the wild in Night City. And I was going to criticize that, saying like, I mean, I feel like that's not really saying, oh, we're trying to portray that Night City is open sexually. I feel like that's just a weird joke. But
there's a character perk that I have. So I never get to really actually see this stuff. But there's a character perk that I have that anything classified as junk gets automatically broken down into parts that you can use for crafting. And so there are times where you can pick up things like that, but I just never end up seeing it because I'm just hitting X on my controller over and over again, just picking up everything, because it's just all going to automatically dismantle and become crafting material anyway. But there is that sort of thing, like more. There are more toys, none that you can play with similar that I'm aware of, like the dildo bat. But other than that, it is kind of there.
Okay.
You can't use an anal bead as a whip.
I found something very fun in the vein of this game. And just the way this year has gone and how they've handled it. And it's just side by side the screenshots of the game running on PC, like a high-end PC, and the game running on console. And it just says January 2020 versus December 2020. So like the January 2020, everything looks great. And it's amazing. It looks like the high-res PC screenshot. And then December is what we got on console. So
yeah.
Well, now to talk about something completely different.
Yay!
Has added a new limited time mode that plays suspiciously like Among Us. This coming again from Patrick Dane at VG247. It looks like Fortnite's ripping off another game, and it had to be Among Us, because Among Us is the biggest thing on the planet. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Fortnite is already a ripoff of PUBG anyway, so like, yeah.
So Epic Games has revealed The Spy Within, a limited time mode, It's a take on hidden identity games, but functions very similarly to Among Us. Specifically, the game starts with 10 players, 8 who are agents, and 2 who are spies. The spies are trying to sow uncertainty and kill the other players. The agents are trying to identify the spies before they can eliminate the crew, while also trying to gather gold coins by completing objectives. Players cannot talk unless in a meeting, which can be called when a player thinks something suspicious is going on. Either the spies win by killing all the players, or the agents win by voting both the spies out or completing their objectives. So yeah, Among Us just launched on the Nintendo Switch. It's coming to Game Pass. It is huge. I'm so happy for this little indie dev that could. And now the biggest thing on the planet is trying to squash it.
Mimicry is the highest form of flattery, but something feels gross about Fortnite doing it again.
Cozy?
Now,
I mean, we'll see how things play out. I'm going to go on the limb here, right here, and say, and if I'm wrong about this, you can clip this out and post it, tweet it at me every single day of the rest of my life. But I don't think this is going to take off the way that Among Us has taken off.
I agree with you, but I still don't think it's kind of scummy. Nathan?
It's kind of scummy. It's kind of a fun thing, but whatever.
I was just going to say, this is one of the modes created in the create mode, right? So this isn't like an official mode.
No, it's a limited time event being put out by Epic.
Oh, well then I don't know.
I think
it's in create. I didn't read too much into it, but I think it is in create mode, but it's being published by Epic.
I think that obviously not the biggest component of Fortnite's success, but I think a pretty huge component of Fortnite's success over PUBG before it is the aesthetic of that game. That aesthetic was, I think, way more marketable than what PUBG previously offered, and I think made it such a huge hit with like demographics both new and old. And with Among Us, like the Among Us guys have kind of entered into that sphere of video game pop culture where like you instantly know who you are, and they like are appearing in fan art and fan creations up and down. And I feel like at this point, like Fortnite isn't going to be able to steal that kind of visual thunder, that like kind of aspect of video game pop culture that the Among Us guys have already cemented themselves into.
I mean, I hope that's the case, but it remains again, yes, flattery, imitation, all that jazz. I still think it's kind of like AJ said, it's kind of scummy of the biggest thing on the planet to come after one of the biggest indie darlings we've seen in the last few years. If
Epic had reached out to them and partnered with them, and they did a split, like, hey, we're not going to ask Among Us for any money, we just want your blessing to put this in the game and you to say something about it, hey, have fun guys, or whatever. If they had partnered with it in that way, but I just checked the Among Us game Twitter and I haven't seen any acknowledgement of it. So
right. I mean, something else that could have been nice.
Said something, it would feel less scummy.
I mean, something they could have done was work with an Innersloth, because we now see it coming to Xbox. We see it coming to the Switch. Why not put it on Epic as well? Have it be one of those PlayStation
trophies.
Yeah, it will be on the Xbox.
I thought there's just PC.
Sorry. Yes, it's coming to PC Game Pass. You're right.
Yes,
but I mean, even still, being included in Xbox Game Pass, presumably it will come to the Switch or to the Xbox and to the PlayStation at some point.
Can't wait for the trophies.
Just because of the popularity of the title. I don't see any reason for them not to.
No, if it's on the Switch, there's no reason not to go to those other systems.
You've already got it built for controller at that point.
Yeah, controller. And let's be honest, they'll have a better, more robust voice chat system.
Well, I don't know how voice chat will work in that sense, because it'll still be crossplay, right?
Oh, that's true.
So you'll probably still want to do like what we do and use something like Discord or Zoom or Facebook or whatever the case might be to voice chat with your friends. But I'm on it. So anecdote, I finally, after us playing this game for what feels like millennia, convinced my wife, because our friends wanted to play a game, to try Among Us. And I think she had a good time. She asked her. And we did. Her and I ended up as the killers one game, and we won. So
wow,
suck it, other people. But now with this being on the Switch, I can play on PC, she can play on the Switch instead of having to use the touch controls on the iPad. And I think it's going to make for a better experience. So I hope it does end up coming to more places. There's no reason for it not to. The studio deserves all the love in the world, and maybe less of the doing the exact same thing, creating clones, creating copies, or ripping it off in Fortnite.
Yeah.
Speaking of things finally coming to places, Google Stadia is now officially available on iOS.
Here we go. Right, this is time for my bathroom break.
So I know I got a Stadia controller in the mail today, but I can now use that with my iPhone.
You could use it with your PC too.
I can, and I have, and it's great. Stadia is now officially available on iOS devices, including the iPhone and iPad, through a progressive web app. We learned of this strategy earlier this year that Google was going to employ for Stadia after the NVIDIA GeForce Now experience came to iOS devices also via a progressive web app. And we also know that xCloud is coming via the same channels. Apple has a very anti-competitive, I'm going to say it, it's an anti-competitive, restrictive, archaic App Store policy that will require each individual game on a server, that requires each individual game on a service to be listed on the digital storefront, effectively blocking several game streaming services from releasing on iOS, including xCloud, NVIDIA's GeForce Now, and Amazon's Luna. So thankfully now with the latest version of iOS, you can navigate to stadia.google.com and play your Stadia games right there from the browser. You can also do what I did and save it to your phone's home screen, which will then remove all the excess browser window bits, and it will run just like any other app on your device. It's great. It works well. I tried it out earlier. It works real good. So thank you, Google, for finding ways around Apple's stupid policies.
Is it funny that they have to release all the games separately, but rate them, but they don't have that for movies or television shows on streaming?
And that's what doesn't make any sense. They're doing it because I'm surprised they don't do it, honestly. I feel like if the Apple of today, like if streaming video services didn't break the mold 5-6 years ago with things like Netflix and kind of forced their ways onto mobile, I think if the same thing was happening now with streaming video, that Apple would be just saying the same thing. The problem is the train's already left the station on that. And just because they have I think they let the streaming video services through because they did not have a competing service at the time. They had iTunes, but they didn't have anything like Apple TV Plus. But now you have Apple Arcade. So if you have competitors to your product they're trying to release on your store, why wouldn't you try to block it? But it is incredibly anti-competitive and hurts the market as a whole. So I am an avid Apple device user, and I think this is one of the worst marketing and technology decisions they've ever made.
I agree.
Yep. Fuck Apple.
I agree.
I mean, not to that extent. Fuck this decision.
But don't.
Speaking of fucking up decisions,
I was gonna say, don't fuck an Apple.
I mean, hey, listen.
Put a hole in it first.
I have a segue. Please let me do it.
Go, Mitch.
Penis.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Speaking of fucking up decisions, EA Play on Game Pass for PC has been delayed into 2021, again coming from VG247's Patrick Dane. On the date that EA Play was meant to arrive on the PC version of Xbox Game Pass, Microsoft has announced that they are delaying it into early 2021. No real reason was given for the delay, only that they needed more time to get it working.
Sure.
Sports in the game.
I was
this only applies to get it if you have Ultimate, right?
No.
Like if you just have Game Pass PC.
What is happening is at the launch of the Xbox Series X and Series S, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate started including EA Play for console. But also announced when that announcement was made is that it was going to also come standalone as part of Game Pass for PC on PC. And I am only a Game Pass for PC subscriber. I do not have an Xbox console. We've talked about this at length. So I was looking forward to having EA Play as part of the Game Pass subscription I'm already paying for. And that is now getting pushed out to next year. I'm glad they're giving it the time they need to get it working. But why wait until the day it was supposed to launch to announce that?
Yeah, that's EA.
Or Xbox. It's Xbox announcement.
Just get an Xbox. It's fine.
I don't want to.
Tough.
I have a perfectly viable PC right here.
I hear Alex has 2.
Yeah, but I don't need one. That's fine. Speaking of selling a ton of consoles, including the many PS5s and many Xboxes that this group has acquired for us and friends and family, the Nintendo Switch is the best-selling console in Canada for the 25th straight month. This being written up by GamesIndustry.biz's Rebecca Valentine. Year to date, the Nintendo Switch in Canada has sold 790,000 units and sold 148,000 units in November alone. It was also the best-selling console in the US last month. However, the PS5 was the best-selling console in the US in terms of dollar sales, but was still outsold in Canada for the 25 straight months of the Switch being the number one console in Canada. That's kind of crazy.
That'll change in a few months. PlayStation had something similar to this when the PS4 launched, and they just blew through for like the first few years.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is they can't keep these new boxes on the shelves, both the Xbox and the PlayStation. Yeah. So anything they get out there is going to sell. So I do see it surpassing it eventually. When that happens is anybody's guess.
My guess
supply has to catch up to demand, right?
I think April or June we'll see more stock on the shelves at that point. April, May, June, and that's when
we'll see it all disappear when we get to next October, November because of the holidays.
Yeah, we'll see.
I feel really bad because I have not played the Switch throughout much of 2020. The Switch typically is a console that I play on the go, of course. And obviously there have not been many opportunities for me to be on the go, being stuck at home throughout much of this godforsaken year. I bought and downloaded Pixel Puzzle Makeout League, Nathan. And I
was going to ask if you played that.
I have every intention of still playing it, but it's just, there's not been a good moment until now where I have a lot more free time because I finished working on Equilibrium. But even now, it's like I'm kind of torn between, do I want to go to my Switch or do I want to go to my PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X? And like the other 3 consoles are definitely calling to me more because obviously I can play those at home, only at home, and the Switch is something that has a little bit more wider range. But
do you still have Cozy for going back to the PS4 specifically? I think everything would just be on the PS5, no?
The reason why I still am going back to the PlayStation 4 is because I unfortunately am running out of storage on my PlayStation 5. If I had unlimited storage, I would just download everything onto it, but I don't.
How many games are you playing at once? Couldn't you just delete stuff and re-download stuff?
I mean,
that's what I've been doing primarily on
PS5. Get a cheap external hard drive. I've got a 3 terabyte hooked up to mine.
That only works on PS4 titles.
Yeah, but it still...
You don't get the benefits of it being on the PS5.
Yeah, but you can move them back and forth as you play them.
I guess.
I only have 1 or 2 PS4 titles installed on the PS5.
So with regards to the
majority of my PS5 and PS4 games at this point.
With regards to the not deleting them, Mitch, it is kind of a vanity thing where like I've completed Bug Snacks, but it would just feel wrong for me to delete it from my dashboard. But yeah,
you probably should.
You got the platinum, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to look at it again.
I'm considering doing that to Astrobot right now. I love Astrobot. I
deleted Astrobot the minute I got the platinum. And then I was showing it to Carmen, who hadn't played it yet. And I just re-downloaded it because it took... I mean, I'm very lucky with the internet service I pay for, but it did not take very long to have to re-download that. I could understand if you didn't have very good internet, that might be a limiting factor for a lot of people out there. And I do take that into account. But for me, I can just delete stuff and re-download it without much concern.
There is also an issue where, like, for example, I sometimes play Rainbow Six Siege with another group of friends. And, like, I don't play that game super often, but I play it just often enough that I can't delete it because I don't want to go through the whole rigmarole if they suddenly bounce it on me that, hey, we're playing this all over again.
How short notice are they giving you? If all you need is one night to be able to re-download it.
I fully acknowledge that this is a non-issue and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here. I just wish that my whole PlayStation 5 memory situation was a little bit more straightforward. That's all.
I am definitely of the mindset that I'd rather have it on there. Just like, I don't delete Halo off my Xbox because there's going to be a rainy day where I just want to pick it up again, even though I played through it a whole bunch and whatnot. So yeah, I totally understand that anxiety against deleting it.
I've grown past that. If I'm done with the thing, delete. If friends want to play it, I re-download. But yeah, Nintendo Switch, way to go for being 25 straight months of being the best-selling console in Canada. And with that, we can wrap up the news for the week. Nothing in read/watch all the things. Nothing raining in the deals department. So I think we can get right into our topic of the show.
Sweet. Let's do it.
2 weeks ago, I think it was, we went through and predicted what we thought was going to happen with the Game Awards. So yeah, we thought we would go back, look at what we predicted, what actually won, kind of talk about the winners, since we didn't talk about that as part of the news, and see who won this little game of ours.
Alrighty.
So I've already populated the winners. The scores have already been tabulated. We will reveal those at the end. I've just moved them down in the sheet a bit. Hopefully you're not revealing that to everybody, Cozy, which I hope
he is not.
No,
he is not.
What? Just for the record, what row is it?
50?
Okay.
50.
Yeah, I've stopped at 35, so we're good.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to work my way from the bottom to the top because that's going from kind of the last.
That's the way I like to do it.
Bottom to top. Okay. So we'll start with the ones that didn't really count for points, but we wanted to do them anyway. The first being, what surprise announcement do you think we'll get at the Game Awards? AJ thought we'd get an update on the video documentary for Halo Infinite. Alex Balland, who is not with us tonight, but we'll talk about his answers regardless, thought we'd get a tease for God of War 2 or God of War Ragnarok. Cozy thought we'd get the first tease of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Mm-hmm. I said that we would get a release date for a new Pokemon Snap. And Nathan said we would get a look at a new 2D Metroid coming in 2021. None of those things were correct. None of those things were mentioned. None of them were even a breath on anyone's mind.
Yeah.
We also knew going into these predictions that we would get, or we didn't know we were going to get a Smash announcement, but we figured we were going to get a Smash announcement, which was confirmed like 2 days after we recorded that episode. AJ and Alex both thought we'd be getting Master Chief. Cozy thought we'd get Doomslayer. I went big and said Ratchet and Clank. Nathan thought Crash Bandicoot. And no one even sniffed at the idea that Sephiroth would be coming to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yeah. Like, Square is weird with licensing out their characters. If you just look at the fact that it's really only been Cloud, and the lack of I don't know if I think that's them licensing from Disney more than anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, just you look at Cloud and like the music selection in terms of Cloud in Smash Brothers.
There's
Square
only two
is like
songs,
very,
right?
very, something like that, something crazy like that. Square is very protective of Final Fantasy VII in particular, and that, the fact that Sephiroth was coming was like both a no-brainer, and I did not see it coming.
Moving on. Oh, okay, never mind. Not moving on.
No,
Nathan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm surprised they went with a Cloud villain instead of maybe another Final Fantasy main character, but then I don't know who you pick. So,
Moving on to the first award that we're going to talk about, and that's Best Debut Game. The majority of us thought this was going to go to Carry On, the only outliers of that being Alex saying Phasmophobia, and Cozy thinking Raji and Ancient Epic would win. The winner was Phasmophobia, so Alex was the only one of us to get that right. I'm not surprised, but I'm a little disappointed Carry On didn't win it.
I suppose I should have accommodated for like just how close Phasmophobia blew up to the Game Awards being voted on.
Recency wise, probably helped it out.
Yeah, I voted. It's 50-50 whether you vote with or against recency bias, and this time it worked against us.
Yep.
Okay, next for Content Creator of the Year, the only one to get it right was AJ, and that was that Valkyrae won that one.
You had that one pegged, AJ.
Congratulations.
I had that one pegged. That one was being a fan of like offline TV and Pokimane and so, like she's roommates with Pokimane, so she's in that circle and she's exploding big on her own. Yes, but she also has the friendship of those people and the people like Pokimane and Offline TV and those viewers, and that absolutely elevated her above Alana Pierce, who I know a lot better than even Valkyrie. So
Fair.
The next award of the night, going for best multiplayer, all of us but Alex got this one right, and that is that Among Us took that one home. Alex predicting it would have been Fall Guys. Good for them.
Wish it was
I'm glad.
Fall Guys.
Yeah. Good for them.
yeah, I think if I remember correctly, you were gonna say Fall Guys, but you switched it to Among Us.
You did
Black,
switch it up,
didn't
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The next award was a no-brainer. We all said it was going to go to Tony Hawk, and lo and behold, it went to Tony Hawk for best sports/racing game.
Hell
It had
yeah.
to.
It's really that good this year.
I need
It
to
had
play
to.
it. I really need
It's
to play
so
it.
good.
Next award category being best sim/strategy. This was a toss-up for us between Microsoft Flight Simulator and Crusader Kings 3. However, it was not a toss-up because the entire world predicted correctly that Microsoft Flight Simulator was going to take that one home. Only Alex and Cozy going with Crusader Kings 3 in that case.
I mean, I feel like it could have still gone either way.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think an in-depth strategy like Crusader Kings is, for a lot of people, like myself included, I'm so intrigued by Crusader Kings, but it's very unapproachable once you try and get into it. Like, you need like an active coach, in my opinion, because my brain is dumb. I need somebody to actively coach me through that, to teach me how to play it. And Flight Simulator, it was incredibly cool to fly past my house.
But it also required the same level of tutelage, in my opinion. But that's just Sims for me. Best family game, unanimous Animal Crossing votes, and lo and behold, Animal Crossing took that one home by a mile. In my
Yeah,
opinion,
there's no question.
there's
about
no
that.
way this didn't win it.
Mm.
Nathan, you went back to it this week.
Yeah, actually, I've got it open right here. You can now make your character blue. There's different colors you can do. You can make snowmen.
Do you guys remember?
Dave,
Do you guys remember back during the early days of this podcast where it felt like the entirety of the show was just people talking about Animal Crossing?
No, we were talking about nips specifically, and now we talk about Cyberpunk nips
yeah.
I thought we talked about dildos.
and nips.
There are like different eras of Press YYZ. There's like the beginning phase, there's the Animal Crossing phase, there's the Nips phase, there's the Girthy phase, and now we're in the what would you call the current phase?
Burnt out, tired,
Yeah.
Yeah,
sluggish.
end of the
Lazy.
year, the gaudy phase, the end of the year phase. You just reminded me, listening to the Kind of Funny Games cast earlier today. They described Cyberpunk's gameplay not as deep, but as very wide. And, you know, I immediately thought, hey, there's another name for this. What could it be?
Yes.
Best fighting game.
sums it up perfectly.
Best
Cyberpunk is a
fight-
girthy game.
Best fighting game. We all said Mortal Kombat, except Nathan, who went with Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. Lo and behold, Mortal Kombat went away with the award.
I took a
Then-
shot. I thought that might work.
You got to take a shot on a few. I've got a couple of those in there I'm kind of disappointed in, but we'll get there when we get there.
Like, I'm
Best
not
role
surprised
play-
Mortal Kombat won, but it is what it is.
Best role-playing game was a split vote, kind of, even though we're 5 people, so it can't split evenly. Alex and Nathan both said Persona 5 Royal. The other 3 of us, AJ, Cozy, and Mitch, said Final Fantasy VII Remake. And the Chocobos have it, fellas. Final Fantasy VII Remake took that award home.
Boo.
I wouldn't
man.
say
It's
boo.
not a
That's
bad game.
It's
I
a
just like
masterpiece.
Persona.
I'm glad it won what it did.
Yeah.
Which we'll
Are
talk
you
about.
play Persona, Mitch?
No, so I have access to 5 through the PlayStation Plus collection, but I feel like I need to wait on a sale for Royal and pick that up. I tried to play P4G and couldn't stick with it. It just didn't hook me.
Really?
I thought it would because it's anime meets Pokemon, but for whatever reason, it just didn't get its hooks in me.
Weird.
Very. Next is best action adventure game. AJ, the only one of us to predict The Last of Us Part 2 would take this. The rest of us thought Ghost of Tsushima was getting this one, and we were all real wrong, except AJ, because The Last of Us Part 2 went home with this trophy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed.
But I mean, I guess
really
it's not
thought Ghost was going to take this because The Last of Us was going to sweep literally everything else, which we will get to as we move further up this list. Okay. Best action game. We all said Hades. The winner was, in fact, Hades, surprising nobody. Innovation and accessibility. The award that was created for The Last of Us Part 2, which we all realized, so we all voted for it. And lo and behold, it went to The Last of Us Part 2.
Say what?
These next few are a bit... this is like the gimme group. Best action, innovation, and accessibility, as well as best AR/VR. Of course it went to Half-Life Alyx. Of course we all said Half-Life Alyx, because of course Half-Life Alyx had to take it. It's the only time we've ever talked about a Half-Life game or a VR game as being in a Game of the Year contender. So it had to be the one that took this.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get into some that were kind of all over the place. Best community support. Nathan, you are kind of on the ball of everything involving Fall Guys. So you said it was going to be Fall Guys. You're the only one who said Fall Guys, and Fall Guys won.
You know what? When we discussed this, we talked. I think there was confusion about what community support meant.
And Nathan,
and it literally fell on what I thought it was going to be,
which was correct. You said that community support was about what community is like most active on the Twitters, on the social medias, like interacting with the community, interacting with the big streamers that are playing the game, in addition to also like making sure that the game is being updated and constantly providing players with all sorts of new experiences and content to enjoy. And in that regards, you were correct that it was Fall Guys.
Mm-hmm.
On to best mobile game. A bit of a mixed bag, with Alex and Cozy going with Genshin Impact. The other three of us saying Among Us. And even though none of us like playing it on mobile, Among Us went away with this award.
Yeah, this is one of those instances where, like, I think I didn't think that Among Us was going to win because I kind of perceived Among Us on mobile as one of those things where, like, kids really play it on mobile, but, like, the people that are voting on this award, like, don't necessarily think of Among Us as a mobile game. But I probably should have added another component to that equation, which is that at the end of the day, though, Genshin Impact is not as mainstream as Among Us, and Among Us is still going to persevere.
I think the other thing to think about Genshin Impact versus Among Us is the majority of those who are voting on these awards would also look at Genshin Impact as a PC or console experience as opposed to a mobile experience. They probably just looked at the quality of the game and the experience of that game regardless of the platform it was on. So I'm glad to see that Among Us is getting a little recognition in this award. Moving on to best indie. You'd think it would have been a unanimous vote for Hades, but no, Nathan had to stick his foot out and say it was going to be Fall Guys because he's all aboard the Fall Guys Express. But unfortunately, this one fell short for Nathan because Hades did in fact take this one home.
Yeah. Fuck you, Hades. It's not even that good.
It is a really good game. I need to get back. Every game, I need to get back to it.
I still haven't played it, but yeah, it's definitely one of those that I'm still listening to a bunch of podcasts. I'm still hearing about it, where I'm not hearing anything about Fall Guys anymore. Even though the season 3 came out just now.
For me, with Hades, this one's a little weird because I've literally only played it on my honeymoon. So I played it like when we get back to the hotel, Carmen would like take a nap or whatever, and I'd boot this thing up and I'd play it, and I really, really, really need to play more of it, especially over the next couple of weeks as we start talking about our games of the year. And I gotta get back to it because it's so dang good. Supergiant or no? Is it Supergiant?
Supergiant, yeah.
Supergiant. Yeah, good. I did have it right. They put out a banger this year. I'm so glad it came to the Switch because I wasn't going to necessarily invest on the Epic Game Store. And just today they announced cross-save. So if you really wanted it on the PlayStation, Nathan, you could buy it now, play it, and then get that save on the PlayStation for those sweet, sweet trophies. If and when it does come to that console.
Well, if those trophies move over, Ubisoft has that issue with like your saves moving over with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but any trophies or achievements you unlock don't unlock when you switch back to the other platforms.
Please play Hades, Nathan. It's really, really good.
It's not good. I own it. I have it on Epic.
It's really, really good. Best ongoing game. Best ongoing game. Nathan said Fortnite. Myself and Cozy said Destiny 2. While as AJ and Alex both said No Man's Sky, and No Man's Sky did get the award for best ongoing game.
Look at that.
Which is a great
good
little
for
comeback story for the studio. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Hopefully Cyberpunk can eventually earn that title. Hopefully they get the same.
I don't know how much of an ongoing, like, best ongoing isn't best redemption story. It's the best ongoing experience.
Well, here's the thing. So in my interpretation of this, and it ended up being correct, ongoing specifically meant that like the improvement arc of it from what it was to what it is continuously outdoes itself in such a way that so substantially improves upon the previous iteration. Cyberpunk needs to have the same sort of redemption story, in my opinion.
So when we get to this same episode next year, after the 2021 Game Awards...
This took No Man's Sky 4 years.
When we get to the Game Awards 2021, is it Cyberpunk or is it Marvel's Avengers that sits here winning best ongoing game?
No,
because if you put those two up against me, I think it's going to be Avengers.
It could be.
What?
Yeah.
It could be, but...
Yeah. I think what they put out in the Kate Bishop DLC was great. It's a good indicator of what's to come, and I feel like they're going to continue to support this game with content, with drops, with improvements. Whereas I'm a little worried that the majority of this next year is going to be spent just bug fixing Cyberpunk and trying to launch the next gen versions.
We'll see.
I think it's too early to predict.
I'm not saying that it will happen. I'm saying it needs to happen because Cyberpunk and the actual devs, not necessarily the higher ups, but the people on the front lines of Cyberpunk deserve that for enduring all the crunch that they said they wouldn't have to.
Agreed.
This is a bit of a side tangent, but I just want to say I found the acceptance speeches at this year's Games Award to be very kind of charming and heartwarming. Obviously, from a production standpoint, it was too bad that, most of it had to take place from people's bedrooms and whatnot. But I just found it really heartwarming when someone would win an award and then you could hear their phone basically exploding with notifications in the background as they kind of got through their speech. I thought it was just one of those like, oh man, this is like a real like kind of human moment that we're witnessing right now as they receive their awards.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I do agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we'll do a bit of a retrospective once we get through the rest of the awards, like just what were our favorite moments or key takeaways or announcements, because we didn't really talk too much about that. But we're also running. No, we're not running too long, but I think we can.
We're in a good
keep
spot.
This one a little shorter this week. Yeah. Games for Impact. Most of us thought Tell Me Why. AJ was the outlier saying Spiritfarer, and Tell Me Why took this home. Another one in the backlog that I do have to get to over this holiday. I've heard phenomenal. Or I've heard kind of mixed things about it, but I'm kind of glad that it's getting the recognition it has for the message that it puts out in terms of the characters and the journey they go on.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Best performance. Cozy said Najee Jeter as Miles Morales. I said Ashley Johnson as Ellie. Nathan said Logan Cunningham as Hades. And the only two of us to get it right, AJ and Alex, both assumed correctly that Laura Bailey was going to take home the award for best performance for her portrayal of Abby in The Last of Us Part 2. I'm happy she won.
People hated the character Abby the first couple weeks of the game, but then all the discourse after the fact just ended up being, oh man, I wish Abby would choke me out.
Weird. Yeah. But so when we talked about this before the awards, I wanted Laura Bailey to win, but this was one of the ones I assumed was going to go in a weird way because of the discourse around the game, and I was proven wrong. Thankfully, I was proven wrong when I said Ashley Johnson was going to win. Her performance was phenomenal. That's not to say anything of the performance, but I am very glad to see Laura Bailey take this one home. On to best audio design. We all said The Last of Us Part 2, except Cozy, who said Half-Life Alyx, and surprise, surprise, the game whose audio design focused incredibly upon the accessibility features in the game and the different aspects of that was the one that took it home. The Last of Us Part 2 going home. A trophy for best audio design.
I should have realized that, like, if Half-Life Alyx wasn't nominated for Game of the Year, it probably wasn't going to pick up many other victories in many other categories outside of, like, the, best VR game category.
It totally understandable, because we all know how much you love the Half-Life series, Alex, or Cozy, to be as hopeful as you were regarding the title taking home some hardware. Moving on to best score and music. This one, we were a little all over the place. So AJ and Nathan both thought The Last of Us Part 2 was going to take it. Alex said Doom Eternal. And Cozy and I both predicted correctly that the phenomenal score in Final Fantasy VII Remake was enough to take home this award for Square Enix.
Phenomenal.
Was it?
Yes.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
You haven't finished the
F-U-N.
game. You need to finish this one, Nathan. It's so dang good.
It's on my winter break list.
I'm so happy for you.
I'm off as of tomorrow's my last day working, so.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Alex was way off base, but I think Nathan and I, it could have been a toss-up between Final Fantasy
I do
and
agree
Last
with
of
you.
Us
I do agree with you for sure.
Yeah.
Another one that this is a first on this list. None of us predicted this winner correctly. So for best art direction, AJ and Cozy both said Final Fantasy VII Remake. Alex said Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Nathan and I both said Hades, but Ghost of Tsushima took this one home, and I should have realized that Ghost of Tsushima was going to take this one home.
Yeah, looking back at this one, I'm like, you know what? This makes a lot of sense, especially the discourse I heard about Ghost when it came out and everybody talked about it and how beautiful it was. Yeah, this seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah. Unfortunately, after the fact, we all realized it was a no-brainer. And unfortunately, I mean, we all know that the experience that Sucker Punch, right? That Sucker Punch put together with Ghost is a phenomenal game. And a bit of a spoiler for the next three categories, but this is the only award that Ghost took home the entire night.
Well, they got the fan favorite award.
Yes, they did get the Player's Voice Award, which we did not mention.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like when Horizon Zero Dawn came out, did it take home any awards at its Game Awards?
No, because Zelda was there.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, I just want to
wait. Zelda was the year before, wasn't it?
No, it was the same year as Horizon.
Oh, I thought
it came out like
Horizon
a week or two.
I thought
Horizon came out like 2 weeks after Zelda.
No, 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before.
It was just before. Then everybody got their Switches.
Yeah,
I forgot it existed.
Sorry.
I just wanted to bring up that example to illustrate how, like, the Ghost of Tsushima could have been condemned to a way worse fate, but as it stands, it managed to pick up 2 awards. They're maybe not the awards we predicted, but hey.
It did not win any awards at the 2017 Game Awards, but was nominated for Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Art Direction, and Best Performance for Ashley Birch. It did win in other award shows. It won a couple at the South by Southwest Gaming Awards with Excellence in Visual Achievement, as well as Most Promising New IP. And it did win at the BAFTA Awards. It did win Best Original Property. So not too shabby for that little game that could from Guerrilla. Back to these awards, though, and now we get to The Last of Us Part 2 part of the show, where it wins friggin' everything. Best Narrative, Best Game Direction, Game of the Year, all going to The Last of Us Part 2. We all agreed unanimously for Best Narrative. Best Game Direction, Cozy thought Final Fantasy VII would get it. Nathan thought Ghost of Tsushima. And on Game of the Year, Cozy and Nathan both thought Animal Crossing would get. The rest of us assumed The Last of Us Part 2 and were found correct.
Yeah, so we're the rebels.
There's been some discourse online with regards to Best Game Direction.
I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah, in particular, I believe there was an article over at Vice, or I know they talked about it on the Waypoint podcast and whatnot. But there's been some scuttlebutt in that, a game that had to suffer, that the developers had to suffer through a tremendous amount of crunch. Cozy, I think, you found a Kotaku article there. It should not win best direction because it was poorly directed, poorly managed technically. If there are extreme crunch conditions like what The Last of Us had to go through, like what Cyberpunk had to go through, direction has to mean more than specifically what the end result was. It has to be more encompassing into what got it there.
See, I don't agree with this because there's project managers and management that are separate from a direction point of view. When you're looking at direction, a lot of times you're looking at the actual direction of how the game is going, and there's separate people handling project management and management. I think this shouldn't preclude somebody from winning best game direction, but I think a positive move forward would be having a best culture, studio culture,
or best workplace,
best sustainable practices, something like that,
and rewarding those workplaces that are hitting those milestones versus trying to condemn game direction, because I think they are separate things. And I think there's some confusion in this article about what a director does for a game.
Agreed. Let's get into a bit more of that discourse and discussion on the awards, what we thought, and any highlights after we go through the scores. So Nathan and Cozy both tied for fourth, getting 50%
winner
of the categories correct.
Rebel Squad.
12.
We tied, winning.
Alex Ballant got 62.5 of his predictions correct with a score of 15. I got roughly 71% of them right with a score of 17. And our winner getting 19 out of 24 categories correct, Mr. Jordy LaForge, aka AJ Fraser.
Yeah, buddy, never doubt me.
That is 2 games in a row that you have won on this show, sir. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. It's pretty exciting to be up here. I see you corrected my math with regards to the percent there.
There were only 24 categories.
I counted the surprise announcement and whatnot.
I figured as much.
Yeah, but it worked out a lot better for me.
Those were the shot in the dark.
Yeah, they were shots in the dark there, but basically 80% of my predictions were correct here. So pretty excited about it.
All right, let's quickly go around the table, talk about our favorite announcement from the show quickly, and then I think we can wrap this one up. So, Cozy, what was your favorite thing you saw from the show?
I'm probably going to upset some people, but I got real happy when they played that Mass Effect trailer. There are so many questions abounding right now about the future of BioWare as a studio. So many questions about how soon this game is going to be coming out. But when I saw what appears to be Liara wipe the snow off of that N7 piece of armor, I got real happy. I didn't think that we would ever return to the characters or some of the characters of the original Mass Effect trilogy. And if that is going to be the direction with this game or this series of games, who knows exactly what direction it's going to go into. I am all there for it.
Nathan, what was the thing you saw from the awards that you were that was the highlight for you that you took away from it?
So there wasn't a lot that blew my skirt up this Game Awards in terms of trailers. But the thing that I was smaller indie games, and this game called Season looks really cool.
That does look good.
I don't know much about it, but just from the trailer, It Takes Two I thought looked really cool. Done by what's his name?
Fuck the Oscars.
Yeah, fuck the Oscars guy.
His name. Yeah,
he will be forever known as Fuck the Oscars.
Coming from Haze Light Studios. I don't remember the name of the individual, but he's the director over at Haze Light Studios.
Joseph.
Yeah.
Joseph Farron.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, that's the one.
So. So both of those look great. There wasn't huge blockbuster announcements. I know Cozy's excited about them announcing Mass Effect. They shouldn't have talked about Mass Effect at all.
I'm excited about the possibility that that announcement represents? Let me phrase it that way.
All that BioWare is going to be asked about for the next 7 years before that game comes out is where's Mass Effect.
Yeah.
AJ, what was the thing that stood out most to you from the show? What was your favorite thing that you saw?
Well, yeah, I mean, like Cozy, like what the Mass Effect trailer represents in terms of where a new Mass Effect could go, and what it means is incredibly exciting. But you know, I think they need to finish one project at a time, and that means dropping Anthem and finishing Dragon Age that they're already working on,
which we also saw at the show, before
announcing that they're also working on Mass Effect and putting together a trailer. Don't do that, please. Perfect Dark. I'm interested to see what they do with it, because Perfect Dark is it's really a spiritual successor to GoldenEye 64, the original Perfect Dark, right? And they tried to kind of replicate that with Perfect Dark Zero on the 360 when that launched, and didn't exactly blow anybody's skirt up. But what does Perfect Dark look like in 2020? I hope they're not just trying to do the same thing, because Microsoft, it's by Rare.
No, it's
which
not.
Is owned by, well, it's owned by Microsoft.
Is coming to us from the Initiative.
Is it the Microsoft owns the IP?
Microsoft owns the IP through the acquisition of Rare, but is the Initiative working on this reboot of Perfect Dark?
Okay,
so Rare's not touching it.
Rare's not touching it.
This is Microsoft's quadruple A studio.
Okay,
which I think is dumb.
Yeah, that's such bad expectations.
Regardless, Microsoft already has Halo. They have Gears. Both of them are kind of shooters. This, I think, has to do something different. It's a spy. It's a spy game, really, with some alien sci-fi stuff, which
maybe
is really cool.
More akin to like a Horizon or a Hitman in terms of gameplay, or a Lara Croft. Tomb Raider.
Yeah, more of an immersive sim than a shooter. It needs to be, in my opinion. And then, of course, there's the Sephiroth announcement, which, as somebody who didn't play Final Fantasy VII and just kind of knows Final Fantasy VII through osmosis, the Sephiroth thing, like his entrance into Smash, looked really cool. So,
Can I say something real quick? Cozy. I like Cozy. Because when I started this, I said, what was your favorite thing you saw? And Cozy gave me one thing. Nathan
I didn't watch
gives me like 3 things. AJ
I
gave
said
me
2.
I mean, the announcement of the show could be Perfect Dark, or it could be Sephiroth, or it could be that new weird kind of pseudo.
Well, it's definitely not going to be Flight Simulator again, or Arc 2
starring Vin Diesel. But I think the biggest thing that we got the night of December 10th, 2020,
the Loki trailer.
All those damn announcements from the Disney Investors Day conference. And if you want, I've got 52 announcements here that we got from that I could run you guys through really quick if you're interested.
For the record, we can't really play any trailers anymore on this show because we discovered that those tend to trigger a lot of copyright flags when we upload them to YouTube. So you can go through those names, but I don't think I'm going to play the Loki trailer.
I'm not going to go through all of that. That was more of me trying to make a bit.
Okay.
And then talking about the idea of copyright strikes against the episode kind of took the wind out of my sails.
No,
so I think we're just going to wrap it up right
I didn't mean to do that. What about you, though?
It's okay, Cozy.
From the Game Awards, just from the Game Awards, what announcement got you most hyped, Mitch?
Swedish Chef and Overcooked.
I didn't see that part of the live stream.
I love me some Muppets. I love me some Disney.
I didn't watch the show at all because I was playing Cyberpunk.
I didn't watch the show at all because I was watching the Disney Investor Day conference.
Are we excited about dinosaurs coming to Disney Plus?
I'm gonna watch it. That's a birthday gift. It comes to Disney Plus the day before my birthday.
There's something like I don't recall much about the dinosaurs apart from that sort of sound in my head, but I'm excited.
We're not going to get into the Disney stuff here. Maybe we'll do a spin-off podcast where we talk about that, or give me a bonus episode where I just talk about Disney stuff.
You can do a bonus episode whenever you want.
The Dinosaur
he made himself his own award.
YYZ.
That's amazing.
In the meantime, I think we can wrap up this week's episode of the show. So thank you for tuning into this episode of Press YYZ. If you enjoyed what you just heard, be sure to check us out on Twitch. Rate us wherever you can, especially on Apple Podcasts. Click subscribe on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, look up Press YYZ. We should be there. Hit the bells everywhere so you know when we go live or post new content. Follow us on Twitter, where we'll send out when those things are going up. And of course, you can follow the rest of the gentlemen here. AJ, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me all over the internet at TimesHero, capital T, capital H.
Nathan, where are you?
Follow me at _NMAC on Twitter. I'm trying to tweet more and be more active socially. I'm trying.
Cozy?
So, yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at Alex Kazina. You can also find my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/CozyRelive. No more streams there for the rest of the year, but I'll have some pretty cool announcements regarding that channel come 2021.
You can find me all over the internet, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, at Mr. Mitch George. I'm probably going to be streaming more over the holidays, so we'll all hang out there.
We should mention Alex released a trailer for Access Granted on his Twitter.
Point.
Very true.
It looks very good.
It looks really good. Blatantly _Alex for that. It looks like it's coming together really, really well. So
the other thing to say is our next few weeks of shows will be pre-recorded and will be our Game of the Year content. So don't expect the usual rigmarole of the news and what we've been up to. It's going to focus strictly on Game Awards, our Game of the Year awards specifically. And until next time, thanks for playing.